If you ask me what it feels like when your heart dies in that instant, I would tell you it's not a tsunami, but a silent, relentless freezing rain that chills the last trace of warmth in your blood until it turns to ice. Today is our 3rd wedding anniversary. For this day, I spent the entire afternoon decorating with my own hands. This top-tier duplex mansion, personally designed by Lu Linchuan, usually exudes a minimalist, aloof style that keeps people at a distance, but now, with the champagne roses I arranged and the flickering candlelight, it has taken on an absurd touch of warmth on the dining table. The Kobe beef has long gone cold, and the wine in the decanter has taken on a nearly dried-up dark purple hue. I sit at the head of the table, my pale skin accentuated by the red velvet gown I wear, like an exquisite statue awaiting judgment. Lu Linchuan didn't come back. He said he had to go to Germany to discuss a crucial merger and acquisition deal, with no definite return date. Madam, the master instructed that if you grow tired of waiting, you should rest first. This bird's nest soup was specially ordered by the master for the kitchen to prepare for you. Butler Chen approached, his tone respectful, yet his eyes held a trace of barely noticeable sympathy. Or perhaps it was pity, the kind reserved for a caged canary. I gently stroked my slightly rounded belly, where a life less than 3 months old was growing. It was left by Lu Linchuan on a lingering rainy night before he departed for Germany. He is thoughtful. I smiled faintly and took the porcelain bowl. Just then, a faint vibration came from the crevice of the sofa. I paused for a moment, followed the sound, and unexpectedly pulled out a silver backup phone. It belonged to Lu Linchuan, likely left behind when he changed clothes. The screen lit up, and an encrypted notification popped up. Livestream connected. Please confirm the camera, Mr. Lu. My fingertips trembled inexplicably, and as if guided by some unseen force, I tapped on the link. In that moment, the world fell completely silent on the phone screen. It wasn't a solemn and dignified business meeting room, but the crystal-clear blue sky of Bali and a seaside church blanketed with pink and white petals. My husband, Lu Linchuan, who claimed to be staying up late for meetings in Germany, was now standing before the sacred altar in a perfectly tailored pure white suit. His face, usually as cold and aloof as a snow-covered mountain, had melted away, filled with a tenderness I had never seen before, one that bordered on humility. Across from him stood a woman in an expensive, custom-made wedding dress, smiling brilliantly. Su Man, his first love, the woman who had left for a brighter future 3 years ago, only to quietly return to the country just as I became pregnant. Mr. Lu Linchuan, do you take Miss Su Man to be your wife, for richer or poorer, in sickness and in health? The pastor's voice, amplified by the speakers and carrying the salty scent of the sea breeze, pierced my ears with perfect clarity. I saw Lu Linchuan take Su Man's hand, his movements so careful, as if holding a priceless treasure that had been lost and found again. His thin lips parted, his voice low and firm. I do. I heard the sound of my own heart cracking, like a fine piece of porcelain shattered by a heavy hammer, the fragments scattering everywhere. So, the so-called business trip was to give her a belated wedding, so, the so-called love was to give another woman the most legitimate promise within the gray area of the law. At that moment, I didn't throw my phone, didn't break down, and didn't even shed a single tear. I just quietly watched them exchange rings on the screen, watched them kiss under the sunlight that didn't belong to me. Uncle Chen, I turned off my phone, my voice so calm it felt unfamiliar even to me. The butler was startled and quickly lowered his head. Madam, what do you need? This bird's nest soup is too bitter. Pour it out. I stood up, my red dress sweeping the floor, stirring up a cold breeze. I walked step by step toward the study, each step taken with utmost steadiness. I knew that from this moment on, Shen Ruining, who had deeply loved Lu Linchuan, was dead. What remained was an avenger determined to personally tear down this hypocritical palace. I dialed a phone number that had been untouched for 3 years. Lawyer Lin, help me draft a divorce agreement. Yes, the kind where one leaves with nothing. No, don't misunderstand, I mean for Lu Linchuan to leave with nothing. On the other end of the line, Lin Xiao exclaimed, Ruining, have you finally lost your mind? Or have you finally woken up? I'm awake. I looked at the cold-eyed woman in the mirror, a cruel smile curling at the corner of my lips. Book the earliest surgery for tomorrow morning. I want to get rid of this child. Since his father is busy getting married outside, there's no need for this child to come into this disgusting world and suffer. Ruo Ning, calm down. If Lu Linchuan finds out, he'll go crazy. Whether he goes crazy or not, I don't know. Before hanging up the phone, I took one last look at the backup phone, where the scene of guests cheering and raising their glasses was playing, but I promise, when he returns to the country, I'll give him a third anniversary gift he'll never forget for the rest of his life. I began operating the computer methodically. Lu Linchuan probably forgot that I was the one who built the financial system architecture of the Lu Group from the ground up. He thought I was just a wealthy socialite who only knew how to arrange flowers and brew coffee, but he forgot that before I met him, I was the youngest actuary in the financial world. I retrieved all the abnormal financial transactions of Lu Linchuan over the past year, those plane tickets to Bali, those overseas properties registered under Su Man's name, and those top-tier jewels purchased under the guise of public funds. All the evidence turned into sharp swords at my fingertips at 3 a.m. The wind outside the villa grew stronger. I returned to the bedroom, opened the safe, and took out that red marriage certificate. I looked at Lu Linchuan's stern face in the photo. Once, I thought it was depth. Now, I see it as nothing but boundless selfishness. Lu Linchuan, since you want that freedom that can't see the light of day, I'll give you a hand. I threw the marriage certificate into the shredder, listening to the piercing sound of cutting, feeling the chunks of rotting flesh being dug out from my heart. Suddenly, the sound of unlocking came from the main door. My heart skipped a beat. Didn't Uncle Chen say he went to Germany? Could it be? I quickly closed the safe, stuffed the backup phone back into the sofa crevice, and sat back in the rocking chair by the window with an expressionless face. The door opened, and a man carrying a chill walked in. He didn't turn on the main light. By the faint moonlight, he saw me sitting by the window. "Why aren't you asleep yet?" His voice was still cool, carrying the casual indifference of someone in a high position. I turned around and looked at the man who had just vowed to spend his life with someone else in Bali. He was still wearing that white suit, just with a black trench coat over it. If you didn't look closely, who would have thought these clothes had just witnessed an international case of bigamy? Waiting for an answer, I said calmly. Lu Linchuan frowned slightly, as if sensing a hint of distance in my tone. He walked over, reaching out to pat my head. "What answer are you waiting for? I wrapped up my business in Germany early and came back specifically to spend our anniversary with you." I caught a faint whiff of perfume on him, a scent that didn't belong to me. It was Bluebell, Su Man's favorite. I tilted my head to avoid his hand, smiling with a touch of cool detachment. "Was the rain heavy in Germany, Mr. Lu?" His hand froze mid-air, a flicker of barely noticeable panic flashing in his eyes, but he quickly regained his usual composure, unshaken even if Mount Tai were to collapse. "Very heavy. That's why I rushed back overnight." "What's wrong? Are you upset?" He pulled out an exquisite blue jewelry box from his pocket, opened it, and inside was a large pink diamond. "This is for you as compensation. Do you like it?" Looking at that diamond, I felt nothing but disgust inside. This was probably the hush money he casually picked out for me when he bought the engagement ring in Bali. "Lu Linchuan, you're sweating." I reached out and gently wiped his forehead. "Are you scared?" He grabbed my hand, his grip a bit too tight, his eyes filled with scrutiny. "Shen Ruining, you're acting very strange tonight. Maybe it's the baby in my belly acting up." I withdrew my hand, gently stroking my abdomen, smiling tenderly yet cruelly. "It seems to know what a great actor its father is." Lu Linchuan's pupils suddenly contracted. He stared at my belly for a long moment before finally uttering, "Be good, don't overthink things. I have an early meeting tomorrow, so I'm going to shower first." Watching his retreating figure, I picked up the tissue that had just wiped his sweat and tossed it into the trash with disgust. "Lu Linchuan, this is just the beginning. Tomorrow's surgery, tomorrow's board meeting, tomorrow's front page headlines. You'll find that the gentle haven you thought it was is actually a grave I've personally dug for you." I gently touched my lower abdomen and silently whispered in my heart, "I'm sorry, baby. In this filthy game, the best way to protect you is to disappear." The morning sunlight filtered through the slats of the private hospital's blinds, scattering in fragments across the cold corridor floor. The air was thick with the scent of disinfectant, A smell that always brought an inexplicable clarity to the mind. I changed into the oversized hospital gown and sat on the bench outside the operating room. In my hand, I tightly clutched the thick stack of examination forms, my fingertips turning slightly white from the force. Miss Shin, this is the final confirmation. Are you sure you want to terminate the pregnancy? The doctor removed her mask, her eyes revealing a hint of complexity. She was my attending physician, also a core member of Lu Linchuan's medical foundation, surnamed Lin, and had always been quite caring toward me. I looked up, my face pale but without a trace of hesitation in my eyes. Yes, I'm sure, Dr. Lin, please proceed as soon as possible. I have something very important to attend to this afternoon. Dr. Lin sighed, as if wanting to say something but holding back. In the end, she simply nodded and gestured for me to enter the operating room just as I stood up. The private phone in my hand began vibrating frantically. On the screen flashed that all too familiar name, Lu Linchuan. I answered the call, my voice surprisingly steady. Hello, Ruining. Where are you? Uncle Chen said you left early this morning. There was a barely noticeable urgency in Lu Linchuan's voice, perhaps because my unusual behavior last night had caught his attention. At this moment, he was probably sitting in his office at the Lu Group, overlooking the entire city, holding a cup of coffee, playing the role of a devoted and busy CEO. I'm out for a walk, the baby's been restless, and I wanted some fresh air. I glanced at the red light glowing above the operating room door, a mocking smile curling at the corner of my lips. Nonsense. The doctor said this pregnancy is unstable and you need to rest. Lu Linchuan's tone grew stern, carrying that undeniable sense of command. I'll have a who come pick you up. He installed a tracker on your phone, don't run off. A tracker? I let out a cold laugh. In the end, he still doesn't trust me, or rather, he doesn't trust that my identity as Mrs. Lu might cause any trouble, tarnishing his steady image in the eyes of those old foxes on the board. Lu Linchuan. I cut him off, my voice as light as a breeze. If the rain in Germany hasn't stopped yet, you should stay there a little longer. The sun here is too harsh, it tends to reveal people's true colors. Before he could react, I hung up the phone and turned it off right away. Miss Shin, please lie down on the operating table. The clatter of cold instruments echoed sharply in the silent room. As the anesthetic slowly flowed into my veins, I felt an unprecedented sense of relief. Baby, don't blame your mother. This world is too filthy. Find a better family next time. When I woke up again, I was lying in the VIP ward on the top floor. Outside the window, a light rain began to fall, pattering softly against the glass. The effects of the anesthesia hadn't completely worn off, and a dull, contracting pain throbbed in my lower abdomen, as if someone were slowly cutting through it with a blunt knife. Ruining, you're insane. How could you dare to do something like this alone? Lin Xiao pushed the door open and walked in, a briefcase in her hand. She had hurried over, and fine beads of sweat still glistened on her forehead. She is my best friend and also a renowned top lawyer in the city. Should I not do this alone, and wait for Lu Linchuan to bring Su Man here to give me tonic medicine? I propped myself up to sit. Even as cold sweat beaded on my forehead, my back remained straight and upright. Is everything prepared? Lin Xiao's eyes were red as she pulled a thick stack of documents and a tablet from her bag. It's all here. Evidence of Lu Linchuan's illegal overseas asset transfers, a notarized copy of his marriage registration with Su Man in Bali, and the accounts showing his embezzlement within the Lu Group to buy a private jet for Su Man. Ruining. Once these are released, Lu Linchuan will be completely finished. No, it's not enough. I took the tablet, my fingers swiftly scrolling across the screen. These will only wound him. What I want is for his reputation to be utterly ruined, and for everyone to turn against him. Just then, the hospital room door was violently pushed open from the outside. Lu Linchuan's personal bodyguard, Ah Hu, barged in with two men in black. He glanced at me lying on the hospital bed, then at the 4 drip hanging by the bedside, and his expression instantly turned extremely grim. Madam, the master requests that you return immediately. Though Ah Hu's tone was respectful, his burly frame blocking the doorway exuded a strong sense of intimidation, and if I refused to go back, I stared at him coldly. Then I must apologize for any offense. The master has ordered that, by any means necessary, You must be brought back to the old mansion. Ahu took a step forward and reached out to pull off my blanket. Ahu, take a good look at where we are. I pressed the call button by the hospital bed while holding up a tablet that displayed the real-time fluctuations in Lu Group's stock price. Make one move against me, and I'll wipe 10 billion off Lu Group's market value within 10 minutes. Guess what? Will Lu Linchuan kill me first, or will he kill you? His incompetent dog, Ahu, froze, clearly not expecting the usually gentle Shen Ruining to suddenly become so fierce. Get out, and tell Lu Linchuan that if he wants to talk, he can come here himself, I snapped sharply. After hesitating for a long time, Ahu finally retreated to the doorway, but he didn't leave. Instead, he stood guard at the entrance like an immovable stone statue. I sneered, then turned to Lin Xiao and said, let's begin. First wave, send it to those directors who have been eyeing Lu Linchuan's position. Lin Xiao nodded and pressed the enter key. Just then, my private WeChat lit up. It was a friend request from a stranger, with a profile picture of a delicate and vibrant bluebell. No need to guess, it was Su Man. I clicked approve. The next second, a high-definition photo came through. In the picture, Lu Linchuan was lying on a hotel bed, his sleeping face cold and aloof, while Su Man, with her bare, fragrant shoulder, was nestled in his arms, smiling provocatively at the camera. Below it was a line of text, Sister Shen, Linchuan was exhausted last night. He said what he misses most are our days back in Berlin. Oh, and he mentioned that he never really looked forward to the one in your belly. Reading these words, my heart, which I thought had already grown numb, still ached faintly. Lu Linchuan. So every single moment you spent with me was just an act. I took a deep breath, steadied my breathing, and quickly typed out a reply with my slender fingers. Miss Su, bigamy in our country's law can carry a maximum sentence of 2 years. Additionally, that silk nightgown you're wearing was bought with the Rand D funds from Lu Group's last quarter. This grand gift, please accept it after sending it. I immediately blocked her. Not 5 minutes later, a sharp screech of brakes echoed from downstairs. Looking down from the hospital window, I saw a black Rolls-Royce speeding to a halt. And Lu Linchuan stepping out of the car. He wasn't even wearing his suit jacket, his tie was askew, and his face, usually unflappable even in the face of disaster, was now filled with shock and fury. Hear a bang, the ward door slammed heavily against the wall. Lu Linchuan, covered in a chill, rushed to my bedside. His eyes were bloodshot, fixed intently on my flat abdomen, his voice trembling violently. Shen Ruining, what have you done? Where's the child? I leisurely folded the divorce agreement in my hands, looked up to meet his gaze, and spoke in a tone as calm as if discussing the weather. I had it removed. The doctor said it was a boy, and he looked a lot like you. Shen Ruining. Lu Linchuan suddenly grabbed my shoulders, his grip so strong it felt like he was about to crush my bones. How dare you? That was my child. How could you kill him without saying a single word? Your child. I let out a mocking laugh and threw the tablet with the Bali wedding photos in his face. Mr. Lu, when you were making your vows in Bali, did you ever think about that being your child? When you were being intimate with Su Man, did you ever think about that being your child? Lu Linchuan stared at the photos on the screen, his body trembling violently, his face flushed red, then turned pale, and finally took on an ashen hue. You, how did you know? He murmured, the icy composure in his eyes cracking for the first time. If you don't want others to know, don't do it yourself. Lu Linchuan, from the moment you decided to return to China to find her, it was already over between us. I pushed the divorce agreement toward him, my tone resolute. Sign it and leave with nothing. Otherwise, these things will be sent to the police station and the tax bureau in the next second. Lu Linchuan stared fixedly at the agreement, then suddenly tore it into shreds like a madman. The fragments of paper scattered everywhere, resembling the flower petals from last night's wedding in Bali. Leave with nothing. Shen Ruining. Do you think you can threaten me with this? He leaned in close to me, his eyes filled with a mad obsession. As long as I don't sign, you'll remain Mrs. Lu for the rest of your life. As for that child, if it's gone, it's gone. We can have another. He said it so lightly, as if it were just a broken toy. I looked at this man and suddenly felt an overwhelming disgust. Lu Linchuan, you probably forgot how I helped you secure this position in the first place. I picked up my phone and elegantly pressed the send button. Since you refuse to be decent, I'll help you be decent. On the screen, the internal group chat of the Lu group instantly exploded. Those pieces of evidence, enough to send Lu Linchuan to prison, spread like a virus. Ruo Ning, it's bad. Lin Xiao suddenly shouted, staring at her phone. Old Mrs. Lu has collapsed at the old mansion. The Lu family is rushing over here, saying they're coming to settle the score with you. I sneered. Coldly, the old lady, that stubborn old woman who always looked down on my background but couldn't bear to let go of the benefits I brought to the Lu family, has she finally lost her composure? Let them come. I leaned against the pillow, my face pale, yet I smiled brightly and charmingly. The more people in this show, the more fun it will be. Lu Linchuan watched the pop-up windows constantly appearing on his phone, his hand dropping weakly. He looked at me, his eyes filled with an unfamiliar sense of detachment he had never shown before. Shen Ruining, when did you become so ruthless? From the day you killed me with your own hands, I said softly, gazing at the rain outside the window. The rain fell harder and harder, as if trying to wash away all the filth in this world. And this small hospital room was becoming the center of a storm. The air in the airport always carried a hurried chill, with massive steel structures crisscrossing overhead like the ribs of some giant monster. I had already changed out of the plain white hospital gown, replaced by a sharply tailored deep red suit. This shade of bright red was a color I used to avoid most, because Lu Linchuan preferred simplicity and elegance, cool and understated. He always said I looked most like the image in his memory when I wore pale green or moonwhite. Only later did I realize he was searching for Su Man's shadow in me. But now, this touch of red was my battle robe, my declaration of war. MS. Shen, the employment agreement with the multinational consortium Tianshu has been reviewed by their legal team. Once you sign it, you will become the CEO of the Greater China region. Lin Xiao followed behind me, lowering her voice as she spoke, her eyes filled with genuine admiration. I took the fountain pen, and on the mahogany table in the waiting lounge, the sound of the pen tip gliding across the paper was soft yet steady and firm. Just as I capped the pen, hurried footsteps echoed through the airport broadcast, followed by the slightly flustered shout of my bodyguard. "Ahu, madam, you can't leave." I turned around and looked at a group of people approaching from the distance. Lu Linchuan walked at the forefront, clearly having just rushed over from a high-level meeting. The top button of his shirt was torn off, and his cold, handsome face was covered with a thin layer of frost. Behind him followed his trembling special assistant, Zhu Cheng, along with a few accompanying bodyguards in black. Passengers around couldn't help but glance over, and some even recognized the head of the Lu group, who frequently appeared on the headlines of financial news. Shen Ruining, come back with me. Lu Linchuan stopped 3 steps away, his chest heaving violently, his voice so cold it could freeze ice. Have you had enough? I can suppress the board of directors, and I've already arranged for doctors to be on standby at the old mansion. If you come home with me now, I can pretend nothing ever happened. Pretend nothing ever happened. I let out a light laugh, as if hearing the biggest joke in the world, gently adjusting my cufflinks. Mr. Lu, is your memory failing you, or do you think my intelligence has degraded to the level of your mistresses? Do you think losing a child or committing bigamy is something that can be erased like chalk on a blackboard? I told you, it was an accident. Lu Linchuan stepped forward, reaching out to grab my wrist, but I didn't move, not even blinking. 4 professional security guards in dark blue uniforms instantly emerged from behind me, forming a human wall that directly blocked Lu Linchuan out. These were high-level security personnel I hired using the benefits advanced from my Tianshu employment contract. Lu Linchuan's pupils suddenly contracted. He stared intently at the security guards, then looked back at me. You actually hired people to guard against me. Shen Ruining, don't forget, legally you're still my wife. It won't be for long. I elegantly pulled an employment offer letter from my bag and waved it in front of him. Mr. Lu, let me reintroduce myself. I am no longer the Mrs. Lu who depended on you for survival. Now, I am the CEO of the Greater China region for the Tianshu Group. According to the non-compete agreement and commercial law, I am now Lu Corporation's biggest competitor. Do you want to forcibly take away the highest executive of your competitor? Are you trying to make Lu Corporation's legal department resign en masse, or do you want Lu Corporation's stock price to plummet to zero? Beside him, his special assistant, Ju Cheng, gasped sharply. With trembling hands, he unlocked his phone, then leaned close to Lu Linchuan's ear, his face pale. Mr. Lu, Tianshu just announced the personnel appointment, and, this morning, they aggressively acquired 3% of the shares held by our retail investors. Lu Linchuan's figure swayed violently. He looked at me, the anger in his eyes gradually replaced by a profound sense of absurdity and unfamiliarity. Have you been scheming against me all along? He asked through gritted teeth. It's not about scheming, just leaving myself a way out. I took a step forward, looking past the security personnel to meet his deep eyes that once captivated me. When you put that diamond ring on Suman's finger in Bali, what were you thinking? When you used Lu Group's funds to pave her way into high society, what were you thinking? Did you think Shen Ruining, was your private property, a harbor you could return to whenever you were done playing outside? Just then, a sudden commotion erupted at the airport entrance. Lingchuan, save me. A soft yet piercing voice broke the standoff. Su Man, dressed in an expensive Chanel suit, rushed over with red-rimmed eyes but was stopped by airport security outside the barrier. She looked utterly haggard, completely devoid of the provocative demeanor she had in the photos. Miss Shen, please withdraw the lawsuit. I had no idea that money was public funds. I truly didn't know. Lingchuan, help me. The police just went to my house. Su Man shouted through the crowd, her once immaculate makeup now disheveled from tears. Her outburst only amplified the surrounding whispers. Isn't that Lu Lingchuan's first love? So it's true, embezzling public funds to support a mistress. That legal wife is so fierce. That red suit is absolutely stunning. I looked at Su Man, then turned to glance at Lu Linchuan, whose face was ashen, and curled my lips into a playful smile. Mr. Lu, your newlywed wife is calling for your help. What, not planning to go defend your so-called long-lost true love? Lu Linchuan didn't even glance at Su Man. His gaze remained fixed on me, carrying a nearly obsessive madness. Shen Ruining, must you go this far, even for the child's sake? Don't mention the child. I cut him off, my voice as cold as a knife scraping glass. You don't deserve to bring him up, Lu Linchuan. This is just the beginning. What you owe me. What you owe the Shen family, I'll take it all back, every last bit. I signaled to Lin Xiao, then turned and walked toward the VIP boarding gate. Shen Ruining, Lu Linchuan roared from behind. Do you think Tianshu can protect you? As long as we're in City A, no one Lu Linchuan, want can be taken away. I stopped in my tracks, turned my head slightly, leaving him with only a perfect profile, and spoke in a calm, indifferent tone. Then let's give it a try, Mr. Lu, instead of playing the domineering CEO game with me here. You might want to go back and check what else your true love has been doing behind your back. Oh, and don't say I didn't warn you, the Lu Group's capital chain isn't looking too stable right now. I didn't look back again. Amid the crisp sound of high heels tapping against the floor, I disappeared into the far end of the steel corridor leading to the boarding gate. Behind me were Su Man's hysterical cries and Lu Linchuan's roar, filled with frustration. Sitting on the leather sofa in the VIP lounge, I watched the silver wings of the plane taking off outside the window and let out a long sigh of relief. My phone vibrated again in my hand. It was an email from an unknown sender, with a subject line that read only 3 words, "The stakes are high enough." Attached was a glimpse of the truth about the Shen family's bankruptcy that Lu Linchuan had been trying to conceal all these years. Lu Linchuan, did you think you were just betraying our marriage? No, you were using my parents' blood to nourish the prosperity of the Lu Group. I picked up the iced Americano in front of me, savoring the bitterness that seeped into my heart. Compared to the 3 years of utter darkness, this bitterness felt almost like sweet dew. The phone screen reflected my eyes, no tears, only a raging wildfire burning fiercely enough to consume the entire Lu Group building. The moonlight over the open sea was as cold as a thin layer of frost, spreading across the brilliantly lit deck of the luxury cruise ship Victoria. This was a charity banquet forcibly organized by the Lu Group to quell recent negative public opinion. As the nominal Mrs. Lu, I was invited to attend, or rather, I was coerced into coming by Lu Linchuan, who used grandma's illness as leverage, employing both soft and hard tactics. Ruo Ning, for the last time, cooperate with me tonight to put on this show. Lu Linchuan stood at the door of the lounge, his slender fingers tugging impatiently at his tie. Dressed in a dark suit, he looked as cold and sharp as a freshly unsheathed blade, his gaze holding a nearly desperate plea as he looked at me. I faced the mirror, applying a lipstick as bright as fresh blood to my lips. Mr. Lu, you're the professional when it comes to acting. After all, you managed to hide a transnational bigamy so flawlessly. What's a small scene like this to you? I turned my head, smiling brilliantly, but not a trace of warmth reached my eyes. Lu Linchuan was left speechless. In the end, he only let out a heavy, cold snort before turning and walking out, trying to cling to the last shred of his pride. The banquet hall was aglow with brilliant lights. The elite of City A had gathered, and countless eyes felt like needles pricking into me. Whispers slipped into my ears through the gaps in the orchestral music. Look, isn't that Shen ruining? After all that commotion, she still hasn't divorced. She really knows how to endure. The one by Mr. Lu's side, Su Man, is even more formidable. I heard she's already showing signs of pregnancy. The position of the rightful wife is hanging by a thread. Holding a glass of champagne, I gracefully navigated through the crowd. Just then, the crowd automatically parted, creating a gap. Su Man wore a custom-made light pink shimmering dress, delicate as a white lotus that could wither at any moment, as she gracefully approached, holding the arm of the elderly Mrs. Lu. Her belly was slightly protruding. Though she was less than 3 months pregnant, her deliberate posture seemed eager for everyone to notice. Sister Shen, you're here too. Su Man walked up to me, her voice gentle, yet her eyes were filled with venomous confidence. Mrs. Lu said the wind is strong tonight and specifically asked me to stay close to her. After all, I'm carrying a heavy load now and can't afford any bumps. Mrs. Lu's face was cold, and she thumped her cane heavily on the ground. Ruo Ning, since you're here, behave yourself. Man is carrying the Lu family's heir. Keep your willfulness in check and don't ruin tonight's business. The surroundings fell silent instantly, everyone waiting to see how I would be publicly humiliated. Lu Linchuan approached from a distance, his brow slightly furrowed, but when he saw Su Man holding the old lady's arm, his steps faltered for a moment. In the end, he did not stand up for me at this time. Old Mrs. Lu, are you sure that's really a child of the Lu family? I chuckled softly, downing the champagne in my hand in one go. Shen ruining? What do you mean by that? Su Man's face changed instantly, her eyes reddening as she pretended to lean into Lu Linchuan's arms. Linchuan, look at Sister Shen, how could she curse our child like this? Curse? I raised an eyebrow, set down my glass, and pulled out a neatly folded piece of paper from my clutch. This is Ms. Su's examination report from St. Mary's private hospital last week. What a coincidence, the director of that hospital happens to be my university classmate. The report shows that due to frequent surgeries in her earlier years, Ms. Su has lost the ability to conceive. Ms. Su, is that belly of yours stuffed with a silicone pad, or just empty air? As soon as these words were spoken, the entire room erupted in an uproar. Su Man's face instantly turned as pale as paper, and she subconsciously tightened her grip on her skirt. You're lying. That's something you fabricated. Whether it's fabricated or not, there is a top-tier medical team on the cruise ship. Let Miss Su go and get tested, and we'll know for sure. I pressed on, my voice echoing through the banquet hall. Not only that, everyone, please look at the big screen. I snapped my fingers. The massive screen, which had been playing an introduction to a charity project, suddenly switched scenes. What was displayed was not some touching story, but a detailed account of how Lu Linchuan had transferred assets overseas over the past 3 years through various shell companies. The flow of every sum of money ultimately converged under Su Man's name. The total amount was shockingly high, and most critically, several of the transactions were clearly marked as Lu Group Randi Special Fund. Lu Linchuan, in order to buy an island overseas for your first love, you didn't hesitate to embezzle public funds specifically allocated for chip development. I looked at Lu Linchuan, who stood frozen in place, my tone icy. You thought you could hide it from the board of directors, from the shareholders, but you can't hide it from the law. Ruo Ning, turn it off, Lu. Linchuan growled, the cool composure in his eyes completely shattered, replaced by a kind of humiliation as if he had been stripped naked and paraded through the streets. I can't turn it off, I sneered, looking towards the entrance. Several uniformed regulatory officers were hurriedly making their way through the crowd. Mr. Lu, regarding the reports of your alleged involvement in economic crimes and bigamy, please come with us to assist in the investigation. Su Man let out a scream and tried to flee amidst the chaos, but she was blocked by the onlookers. She slipped, and her previously protruding belly, due to the collision, slid to her side, drawing a wave of mocking laughter from those around. Amidst all this chaos, a composed figure walked up to my side. Jiyu Qingju, Lu Linchuan's biggest business rival, was now gentlemanly taking off his suit jacket and draping it over my shoulders. Miss Shen, or should I start calling you President Shen? Jiyu Qingzhou's voice carried a hint of amusement. I've already signed the takeover agreement for Tianshu. Starting tomorrow, you'll be the one to dismantle Lu Group's sinking ship. Watching Lu Linchuan being taken away with that resentful and desperate backward glance, and seeing Su Man throwing a tantrum on the ground like a clown, I felt not a shred of vengeful satisfaction in my heart, only a cold clarity after liberation. Lu Linchuan, you once asked me what I gained over these 3 years. I stood at the edge of the deck, facing the sea breeze, watching the distant dawn gradually rise. Now I tell you, I gained awakening. From today onward, the name Shen Ruining will no longer be anyone's appendage. I threw that 3rd anniversary wedding photo into the unfathomable depths of the sea, as if burying a past that had turned foul. The sea breeze blew, the long skirt flared like fire. In this high-stakes game on the open sea, from the very beginning, I was the only house. The top-floor conference room of the Lu Group building had always been the heart of power in City A. Today, the air here was so thin it felt suffocating, like a massive vacuum chamber. At both ends of the elongated black walnut conference table sat all the core directors of the Lu Group. These usually overbearing old foxes were now holding their breath, their eyes darting between the vacant chair at the head of the table and the man standing by the window. Lu Linchuan stood with his back to the light, his black suit vest accentuating his tall yet slightly rigid frame. Although he had been taken away for questioning on the cruise ship last night, he had managed to secure temporary bail in the early morning, thanks to the Lu family's deep connections. However, the dark circles under his eyes and the stubble on his jaw completely shattered the image of the aloof, refined young master he had cultivated for years. Mr. Lu, due to your personal negative news and the scandal of misappropriating the capital chain, Lu Group's stock price has already hit the limit, down for 3 consecutive hours. An elderly director tapped the table, his tone unfriendly. The Tianshu Group has launched a hostile takeover. Without core technical support or a large capital injection, Lu Group won't survive tonight's market close. Lu Linchuan suddenly turned around, his voice hoarse yet still carrying a sense of authority. What's there to fear? We have the 3rd-generation chip technology developed by the S laboratory. As long as this technology is in our hands, no one can swallow Lu Group. But Mr. Lu. Assistant Ju Cheng rushed in, wiping cold sweat, his voice trembling. We just contacted the S laboratory, and their response was, the cooperation agreement has expired, because the person who signed the agreement back then was Shen Ruining. Shen Ruining, Lu Linchuan's brows furrowed tightly, a flicker of disdain flashing in his eyes. What does she know about technology? That was just a document she signed on my behalf as Mrs. Lu. Go, bring her to me. If she wants money, I'll give her money. No need to bring it, President Lu. The conference room doors were pushed open by 2 bodyguards. I walked in gracefully, wearing a pair of stiletto heels and an impeccably tailored ice blue suit, holding a silver tablet in my hand. I didn't look at Lu Linchuan but walked straight to the head seat, the one that originally belonged to him. Shen Ruining, this is not a place for you to mess around. Get out. Lu Linchuan quickly walked over, trying to grab my hand, but was blocked by the person behind me. It was Jiyu Qingju. He was dressed particularly formally today, his gaze full of mockery as he looked at Lu Linchuan. Mr. Lu, let me introduce you. The person sitting before you is not only the Greater China CEO of Tianshu but also the core chip architect you've been desperately searching for over the past 3 years. The entire meeting room fell into a deathly silence. Lu Linchuan's expression froze on his face, and for the first time, a crack of something called fear appeared in his always unperturbed eyes. Impossible. This can't be, he murmured. When you married me 3 years ago, you were just an ordinary financial actuary. You even spent every day at home grinding coffee and trimming flowers. That's because I thought you loved me for who I am, not for the Shun family behind me or my talents. I took my seat at the head of the table and projected the content from my tablet onto the large screen. Lu Linchuan, over the past 3 years, you thought you were working hard outside, providing me with the life of a wealthy socialite, but you forgot who was it that gave you every solution to the technical challenges you faced, and who left those late-night optimization plans on your desk. On the screen, lines of flickering code and the experimental report I drafted 3 years ago clearly documented everything. I deliberately hid my identity because I wanted to be an ordinary wife. But what about you? I looked at him coldly. You used my research to win Su Man's favor, to fill the financial gaps of the Su family, and even tried to use these technologies as leverage to uproot the last remnants of the Shen family. Ruo Ning, let me explain. Lu Linchuan tried to approach, his demeanor humble for the first time. Explain how you used me, or explain how you committed bigamy. I sneered, slamming an acquisition contract on the table. Now, the Lu Group is insolvent. As the owner of the S laboratory, I officially announce the withdrawal of all technology licenses. Lu Linchuan, without this chip, your current Lu Group is nothing but a pile of scrap metal. The surrounding directors could no longer sit still, and they began to defect one after another. President Shen, no, Miss Shen, we had no idea about what Lu Linchuan did. That's right. We can support you in taking over the board of directors, as long as we can protect the stock price. Lu Linchuan looked at the board members who had once been subservient to him, now gathered around me like dogs, and let out a self-mocking laugh, harsh and desolate. Shen ruining. You hid it so well. 3 years, over 1,000 days and nights, you watched me perform like a clown in front of you. Did it feel especially satisfying? He stared at me, his eyes filled with a near-destructive madness. You got rid of that child just so you could crush me without any attachments today, didn't you? Mention of the child felt like a needle pricking my heart. But it was quickly covered by cold, hard reason. Lu Linchuan, that child died because of your arrogance, not my scheming. I stood up, looking down at him. You thought you had control over everything, but you don't even know who you truly love or what you truly possess. You only love that sense of control, that phantom of your first love living in your memories. At that moment, the landline in the conference room rang. Ju Cheng answered it, his face instantly turning ashen. Mr. Lu, the finance department has called the police. Miss Su Man just tried to forcibly withdraw the last reserve fund and was stopped on the spot by the police. She confessed that 3 years ago, in order to secure the Shen family's land, you were involved in forging contract evidence. Lu Linchuan slumped into his chair, as if all his bones had been pulled out. So, this is the truth you wanted, he said, looking at me, tears of regret finally welling up in his eyes. But those tears were too cheap, so cheap that they made me sick. No, this is just a glimpse of the truth. I leaned close to his ear, speaking softly in a voice only the two of us could hear. Lu Linchuan, do you think the Shen family's bankruptcy 3 years ago was just an accident? I've already traced that overseas account. The person who reported my father back then was arranged by you personally, wasn't it? To save me, you first destroyed me with your own hands. I can't bear such deep affection. Lu Linchuan's pupils instantly dilated. He opened his mouth but couldn't utter a single sound. I turned around and nodded to Jiyu Qingju, clear the room, since Mr. Lu is tired, let him go to where he should be and rest properly. I walked out of the conference room without looking back at him. The corridor of the building was long, with a bustling cityscape visible through the floor-to-ceiling windows. I knew that the empire behind me was crumbling, and I was walking toward my own brand new battlefield. A new question arose in my heart. Was the bankruptcy of the Shen family back then truly the work of Lu Linchuan alone, the true mastermind behind that overseas The Count still seemed shrouded in mist. The Liu family's old mansion was situated on the mountainside in the suburbs of the city. It was a typical deep, sprawling Chinese-style compound, with its upturned eaves and corners appearing eerie and solemn in the curtain of rain. This had been the place I detested most for the past 3 years, with every bluestone slab engraved with the so-called family rules and dignity of the Liu family. At this moment, the rain poured down, washing over the podocarpus trees in the courtyard. I pushed open the heavy vermilion lacquered door, the black umbrella in my hand dripping with water. "Madam, the old lady has instructed that you cannot enter now." The servant at the door still tried to stop me, her words carrying the rigidness of a bygone era. I halted and gave her a cold glance. The authority in my gaze made this old servant, who had been with the Liu family for 30 years, instinctively take a step back. "Now, I am the largest creditor of the Liu Group." I closed my umbrella, letting the rainwater from its tip trace a resolute line on the floor. "In half an hour, this estate will no longer bear the Liu name." I walked straight into the main hall, which was also the ancestral shrine of the Liu family. The finest agarwood incense burned in the censer, its smoke curling upward. Amid the haze, old Mrs. Liu sat upright in the master's chair, leaning on the agarwood cane that symbolized her authority. Standing beside her was Liu Linchuan, who had just returned from assisting with the investigation at the police station, along with several stern-faced elders of the Liu family. "Shun ruining. How dare you come back, old Mrs. Liu?" slammed her hand on the armrest, her wrinkled face twisted and ferocious with rage. "You've ruined Linchuan. You've ruined the Liu family. And now you even want to seize this ancestral home. You jinx. I never should have agreed to let Linchuan marry you in the first place." I walked to the center of the hall, facing the ancestral tablets of the Liu family, and let out a self-mocking laugh. "Old Mrs. Liu, do you think it was me who wanted to destroy the Liu family?" I pulled out a stack of yellowed old case files from my briefcase and flung them directly onto the altar table, knocking over the exquisite incense burner. 3 years ago, my parents died in a car accident on their way to a bidding meeting, and the Shun family went bankrupt overnight. Back then, it was Liu Linchuan who appeared like a savior, saying he wanted to repay a debt of gratitude, promising to protect me for life. I was so grateful. "I even served your family like a slave for 3 years. Liu Linchuan's body stiffened. He stared at the files, his face turning from ashen to pale. "But I only recently discovered." I suddenly turned my head, glaring fiercely at Liu Linchuan, each word seeming to be squeezed out from between my teeth, that the person responsible for that car accident received severance pay from a subsidiary of the Liu Group that very night. And that tip-off letter that bankrupted the Shun family, not only was it written by Liu Linchuan, but the core business secrets inside were personally provided by you, weren't they, madam? The ancestral hall instantly fell into a dead silence. With only the roar of thunder outside, old Mrs. Liu's eyes flickered for a moment, but she still stubbornly maintained her composure. "The business world is like a battlefield. If the Shun family couldn't protect their legacy, it was their own incompetence. Linchuan marrying you was giving the Shun family a future. Leave a legacy. Ha 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 ha." I laughed so hard that tears nearly fell, a laugh filled with extreme sarcasm. "So, your so-called repayment is to first kill my parents, then keep me like a pet, a blood bag to be used at will." Liu Linchuan, every day you look at this face of mine. Do you really not have nightmares when you sleep at night? Ruo Ning, it's not like that. Liu Linchuan's voice was hoarse. He stumbled forward, wanting to explain something, but was pinned in place by the hatred in my eyes. Of course he doesn't have nightmares, because he thinks he's a saint. I stepped closer to old Mrs. Liu, my voice low but carrying a bone-chilling coldness. "He believes that as long as he treats me a little better, as long as he marries me, he can make up for that blood debt. Unfortunately, Liu Linchuan, the deep affection in your eyes is, in my view, the most nauseating hypocrisy in the world." Old Mrs. Liu trembled with anger, raising her cane to swing at me. "You poisonous woman, I'll beat you to death." Before the cane could land, the bodyguard I had brought swiftly snatched it away. "Mrs. Liu, since you place such importance on the dignity of the Liu family, I will tear it to shreds right in front of our ancestors." I turned to look at Liu Linchuan. "Su Man has actually been your spy planted in the Shun family all along, hasn't she?" 3 years ago, she fled far away. Because she knew too much and feared you would silence her. Now she's back because she holds the recording of you hiring a hitman back then, Lu Linchuan, to keep her quiet. You were willing to gamble the future of the Lu Group, even to the point of marrying me again. You don't love her, you love the fact that your dirty secret will never be exposed. These words were like a heavy bomb, completely shattering Lu Linchuan's last shred of dignity. He slumped into his chair, covered his face, and let out a muffled sob. The truth goes far beyond that. I watched a bolt of lightning split the night outside the window. Lu Linchuan, do you really think the child Suman is carrying is yours? Back when she was abroad, she had already registered with a local drug lord to get a green card. She came back this time to help that drug lord launder money, and you just happened to be the perfect tool for it. Lu Linchuan suddenly looked up, his eyes filled with disbelief. What did you say? You think you have everything under control, but in reality, you're the most pitiful pawn, I sneered, pulling a court seizure order from my bag. Right now, the police have already frozen all of Suman's overseas accounts. Following these leads, every single thing you did back then will come to light. Lu Linchuan, this ancestral hall will soon have a new owner. Just as I was about to leave, old Mrs. Lu suddenly spat out a mouthful of blood and collapsed to the ground. Convulsing, Lu Linchuan exclaimed in surprise and rushed over, but I only paused for a moment before walking into the storm without looking back. Shen Ruining, Lu Linchuan desperately called my name from behind, his voice filled with pleading, regret, and a belated, meaningless affection. I opened the black umbrella, and my red high heels splashed through the puddles, scattering fine droplets of water. The flames of revenge did not die down after the truth was revealed. Instead, they burned even brighter. The force behind Suman seemed to be quietly watching me. But so what? In this game, I have personally killed that humble version of myself. The heavy rain showed no sign of stopping. Instead, it dragged the entire city into a bottomless quagmire. I sat in the top-floor office of the Tianshu Group headquarters, the surveillance screen in front of me flickering with a cold blue light. Jiyu Qingju handed me a cup of hot cocoa, his fingertips tapping lightly on the desk. Suman has disappeared. Before the police arrived at her private apartment, she vanished into thin air. Lu Linchuan is now frantically searching for her, not just for the child, but also to recover the last core Randi funds of the Lu family that Suman took with her. She can't escape. I watched the red dot blinking incessantly on the screen. It was the tracker in Suman's necklace. That day on the cruise ship, what I draped over her shoulders wasn't just a coat, but also a miniature tracking device. At that moment, my personal phone rang, the video call connected, and the screen showed a deserted chemical plant. Suman's delicate face was now twisted almost into a grimace. In her hand, she held a rusty scalpel, and tied to a chair opposite her was a person covered in blood. It was Lu Linchuan. His expensive suit was already torn to shreds, his cool face covered in bruises, and the blood at his temple had dried, making him look disheveled and pitiful. Shen Ruining, do you think you've won? Suman laughed maniacally into the camera, her voice echoing through the empty factory building. You ruined my reputation. You destroyed my way out. Now, I'm going to make you watch your husband die right before your eyes. Even if you don't love him anymore, with the reputation of your ex-husband being killed by his first love, you'll never be able to wash it clean in this lifetime. Suman, let him go. You still have a chance to turn yourself in. I stared calmly at the screen, my mind racing. Turn myself in. Haha, the boss behind me won't let me live long enough to step into a prison. Suman suddenly stopped laughing, her eyes flashing with madness. Lu Linchuan, open your eyes and see, this is the woman you married out of guilt. Look, she hasn't even frowned. She's waiting for me to kill you so she can take over all your inheritance. Lu Linchuan struggled to lift his head, his gaze searching the void for the direction of the camera. He opened his mouth, his voice so faint it was almost inaudible. Ruo Ning, don't come, go. Shen Ruining, you have half an hour. Come alone to the old chemical plant in the southern suburbs and bring the chip core key. Otherwise, I'll slit his throat first, then level this place to the ground. The video was cut off. You can't go. Jiyu Qingju suddenly stood up. This is clearly a trap. The drug cartel behind Suman has long wanted to retrieve the chip technology. It's the core algorithm for their money laundering. If I don't go, Lu Linchuan will die. I put on my trench coat, my eyes as calm as stagnant water. He owes me his life, and it's up to me to settle that debt, not to die at the hands of a woman like her. Besides, Suman doesn't know that the so-called secret key is actually a directional detonator. South Suburb Old Chemical Plant. The smell of decaying steel and pungent chemical agents rushed toward me. I walked alone into the dimly lit factory building, my high heels tapping on the concrete floor, producing hollow echoes. "I'm here," I said, holding up the silver USB drive in my hand, my voice steady. "Stop." Suman emerged from behind the iron platform on the second floor, holding a remote control in her hand. "Throw the thing on the ground and step back 10 paces. I did as she said. At that moment, Lu Linchuan, who was tied to the pillar, suddenly began to struggle violently. He looked at me, his eyes filled with terror and despair. Suman sneered as she walked down the stairs, picked up the USB drive, her eyes brimming with greed. "Is this the treasure that can control the global financial interface? With it, I can escape far away." As she spoke, she pressed the communicator. "Boss, I've got the item. You can take care of these two now." Just then, huge searchlights suddenly lit up around the factory, and police sirens blared from all directions. "Freeze, police!" Suman was stunned, frantically pressing the remote control. "If we're going to die, let's all die together." However, the expected explosion never happened. I looked at her coldly. "Suman, did you really think I would bring the secret key with me? That USB drive contains a positioning signal booster and a complete evidence package of illegal money laundering. From the moment you plugged it into the communicator, your entire cross-border organization has been under Interpol's surveillance. You lied to me." Suman charged at me like a madwoman, but a sniper hidden in the shadows shot her in the wrist. The remote control fell to the ground with a dull thud. Amid the chaos, I quickly ran to Lu Linchuan and untied the ropes binding him. Lu Linchuan collapsed weakly into my arms, his hand trembling as it clutched my sleeve, his voice choked with emotion. "Ruo Ning, I'm sorry. I thought I could protect you. I thought Suman just wanted money." "Lu Linchuan, you're still as arrogant as ever." I pushed him away, stood up, and looked down at this once overbearing man. "You think you were protecting me? You were just satisfying your cheap heroism. This kidnapping was a trap I set for Suman, and it was also your last chance. Opportunity." He looked at me blankly. "To let you see clearly what you gave up for that illusory white moonlight." I turned to look at Suman, who was being escorted into the police car. She was cursing hysterically, with not a trace of her former socialite demeanor left at that moment. A police officer walked over, holding a document that had just been discovered. "Miss Shen, we found a secret will in Suman's personal bag. It shows that the illegal merger of the Lu Group 3 years ago actually had another mastermind behind it. Suman was merely a proxy holder. And that person," the officer paused, looking at Lu Linchuan, "is Mr. Lu Linchuan's uncle, who has been missing for many years." Lu Linchuan was as if struck by lightning. He stared at the document and laughed, utterly devastated. "So, I've always been their pawn. I destroyed you, only to be helping our enemies." Suddenly, he vomited a large amount of blood, his whole body curling up on the rain-soaked ground. I watched the scene coldly. In this web of lies within lies, no one was innocent. "Lu Linchuan, you can seek your redemption in prison." I turned and walked out of the factory building, with the continuous flashing of police lights and the man's wails behind me. In the curtain of rain, I seemed to see the gentle smiles of my parents, but soon, those smiles vanished into the blinding white light. In the next chapter, I will bring all of this to an end. The air in the courtroom was solemn and dignified, with the massive national emblem hanging high above, like a sword of judgment suspended over everyone's heads. Today was the final hearing in the consolidated trial of Shen Ruoning's lawsuit against Lu Linchuan for divorce, bigamy, and property encroachment. The gallery was packed with media reporters and the elite of City A, everyone holding their breath in anticipation. Lu Linchuan sat in the defendant's seat, having visibly lost a great deal of weight in just a few short weeks. The once well-fitted and sharp black suit now hung loosely on his frame, looking almost empty. Only his eyes, upon seeing me enter the courtroom, suddenly flickered with a faint glimmer of light, only to quickly dim again. Please submit the supplementary evidence, plaintiff. The judge's voice echoed through the quiet hall. Lin Xiao stood up and produced a sealed medical file. Your Honor, we are submitting rebuttal evidence regarding Mr. Lu Linchuan's accusation that the plaintiff maliciously terminated the pregnancy, as well as the truth hidden behind this evidence. Lu Linchuan abruptly raised his head, his hands gripping the railing so tightly that his knuckles turned white. He had always believed that was the cruelest blow I had dealt him in revenge. Shen ruining. Must you say it here? His voice trembled. Carrying a hint of almost humble pleading, I didn't look at him, just stared straight ahead, my tone indifferent. The truth knows no occasion, Mr. Lu. At that moment, the courtroom door swung open, and a middle-aged man in a white coat, with a solemn expression, walked in. It was Dr. Lin, the private physician Lu Lichuan had once trusted most, and the doctor who had overseen my surgery. I am Lin Zhongwo, former director of Lu's private hospital. He stood in the witness stand, avoiding Lu Lichuan's shocked gaze. 3 weeks ago, Miss Shen Ruining did indeed undergo an abortion procedure at our hospital. However, prior to that, Miss Shen had already experienced 2 severe episodes of threatened miscarriage. Dr. Lin paused, took a deep breath, and said, the root cause of Miss Shen's unstable fetal position is the so-called tonic she has been taking long-term. It's the bird's nest that Mr. Lu Linchuan personally instructed the kitchen to give Miss Shen every morning and evening. After testing, it was found to contain an extremely high dose of a chronic anti-implantation drug. A loud uproar erupted in the gallery. Lu Linchuan was as if struck by lightning. He abruptly stood up and shouted incoherently, you're lying, that's a top-grade tonic I had someone bring back from abroad. I did it for her health. Was it for her health, or to ensure she could never conceive that child who might threaten your inheritance? I slowly turned my head, looking straight into his soul through the cold air. Lu Linchuan, when you were making vows with Suman in Bali, did you also think that as long as I had no children, I would forever remain just a caged canary, never growing stronger because of motherhood? Your so-called deep affection was poisoned from the very beginning. Lu Linchuan stood frozen in place, his lips trembling, unable to utter a single word. As for that child, Dr. Lin's voice rang out again, carrying a professional coldness. He had already lost his heartbeat before the surgery. Mr. Lu, the day your wife found out you went abroad to marry your lover was also the day she suffered a massive hemorrhage. She said she wanted to personally remove this dead seed and return it to you completely. No, impossible. Lu Linchuan collapsed into the chair, his entire being as if his soul had been drained. He had always thought it was my hatred for him that killed the child, never imagining that it was the poison he had personally fed her that severed his last bloodline. The moment the doctor finished speaking, the wife removed the child. This one sentence left the husband collapsed. This scene, now playing out in reality, is more brutal than any revenge fantasy. Lu Linchuan covered his face, emitting low, trapped animal-like sobs from the defendant's seat. Lu Linchuan, I walked up to him, looking down at him from above. You once asked me why I had to see this through to the end. Now I'll tell you, because what you owe that child, what you owe my parents, can never be repaid in this lifetime. This verdict is just the interest. The judge's gavel fell, its crisp sound announcing the trial's outcome as Lu Linchuan was suspected of bigamy, economic crimes, and intentional harm, attempted poisoning. The court upheld all of my claims. 80% of the assets under Lu Linchuan's name will be transferred to me as compensation for the Shen family's bankruptcy and personal harm. When I walked out of the courtroom, the sun outside was dazzling, stinging my eyes. Miss Shen. I stopped in my tracks and saw Lu Linchuan being escorted by bailiffs toward the prison van. As he passed by me, he struggled free for a second, staring at me with a look of near-maddening regret in his eyes. Ruo Ning, if I hadn't listened to Suman back then, if I had truly wanted to build a life with you, would you have forgiven me? I looked at him and suddenly felt that the man before me was a stranger. Had I ever loved him deeply? Perhaps, but that was a Shen Ruining who had humbled herself to the dust for love, and that version of her had long since died on the operating table. Lu Linchuan, there are no IFS in this world. I straightened my bright red suit, revealing the brightest smile I've had in years. Oh, and I forgot to tell you, I've already reclaimed the land that belonged to the Shen family back then. Tomorrow, construction will begin there for a women's mutual aid foundation called Rebirth. I will use your money to save more people who have been hurt by men like you. Shen ruining, I hate you. I hate you for making me see that I'm a beast, he roared behind me, his voice swallowed by the iron door of the prison van, eventually fading into a desperate final note. I walked down the long steps of the courthouse in my high heels. With each step, I could feel the path beneath my feet growing firmer. Ruining, what's the next step? Lin Xiao walked over and handed me a document. To the Lu Group. I gazed at the distant skyscraper that symbolized power. Now that we have the verdict, it's time to settle those unresolved messy accounts. Lu Linchuan's uncle, that big shot hiding behind the scenes, should make an appearance. The wind lifted my long hair as I turned for one last look at the solemn courthouse. The process of revenge was certainly satisfying, but in this moment, what I truly felt was a sense of freedom. As if reborn, I was no longer someone's wife, no longer someone's tool for revenge. I was Shen ruining. The top floor of the Lu Group building, once a symbol of that man's supreme authority, now seemed precarious under the golden glow of the setting sun. I pushed open the door to the executive CEO's office. Every ornament and every inch of carpet here had once witnessed Lu Linchuan's arrogance, but now, due to Lu Linchuan's imprisonment and the series of scandals that were enough to destroy the business empire, this place was undergoing an unprecedented purge. President Shen, the transfer of 30% of Lu Group's core equity has been completed. Combined with the portion awarded by the court, you are now the absolute controlling shareholder of Lu Group. Zhu Cheng stood to the side. He had once been Lu Linchuan's most trusted special assistant, but now he was bowing, not even daring to breathe heavily. I sat down in the large leather swivel chair, feeling the cold texture of the backrest. Where is Lu Zhentian? I flipped through the liquidation report in my hand, my tone calm. Lu Zhentian, the biological uncle of Lu Linchuan. He disappeared 3 years ago, yet he is the shadowy mastermind behind Su Man's forces. It was he who, exploiting Lu Linchuan's arrogance and thirst for power, set the trap to destroy the Shen family, while secretly eroding the foundation of the Lu Group. He's in the press conference room downstairs, preparing to hold an emergency board meeting, trying to take advantage of the chaos to elect himself as acting chairman. Zhu Cheng lowered his voice. President Shen, should we stop him? Stop him, I sneered, closing the folder in my hand. No, I'm going to see him off. Downstairs in the press conference room, camera flashes were going off like crazy. Lu Zhentian, a middle-aged man who appears kind and gentle on the surface but is as cunning and ruthless as a snake, stood on the podium, delivering an impassioned speech. Everyone, the Lu family is facing an unprecedented crisis. As a member of the Lu family, I have an unshirkable responsibility. Although Lu Linchuan has made mistakes, the foundation of the Lu family must not be shaken. The overseas investment in my hands will be the only lifeline for the Lu family, the only lifeline. Or the final noose. I pushed open the side door, and my voice, amplified by the microphone, echoed throughout the hall. The media's lenses instantly turned toward me like sharks that had caught the scent of blood. Lu Zhentian's face froze for a moment, but he quickly regained his composure, putting on the pained expression of an elder. Ruining, I know you've been wronged, but you don't understand the ways of the business world. This is not the time for you to throw a tantrum. If the Lu Group goes bankrupt, it won't do you any good either. I may not understand business, but I understand the law. I walked up to the podium and pulled out a document jointly issued by Interpol and the tax administration from my bag. Lu Zhentian, the 13 money laundering accounts you set up overseas, as well as the life-saving funds you injected into the Lu Group through Su Man, have all been confirmed to originate from a transnational drug trafficking syndicate in Southeast Asia. You're not saving the Lu Group, you're turning it into a massive money laundering machine. The entire room erupted in an uproar. You're lying. This is slander. Lu Zhentian slammed the table and stood up abruptly. Framed. I made a gesture. On the large screen, a high-definition surveillance video began to play. The footage showed Lu Zhentian meeting with Su Man in Bali. The content of their conversation clearly mentioned how to use the Shen family's bankruptcy as a stepping stone to lure Lu Linchuan step into the abyss. Not only that, I stared into Lu Zhentian's eyes, which were gradually revealing fear. The person who truly ordered my father's car accident back then was never Lu Linchuan. He was just a scapegoat you used. The real employment contract was signed under your name, Lu Zhentian. Lu Zhentian slumped in his chair, the two men in black behind him, sensing the situation was turning against them, tried to flee but were immediately subdued by plainclothes police officers who had been lying in wait. Shen Ruining, you crazy woman, you've actually destroyed the entire Lu family. Lu Zhentian let out a heart-wrenching curse as he was taken away. I stood before the cameras, facing countless flashes, my expression cold and composed. It wasn't me who destroyed the Lu family, it was the greed in your hearts and your disregard for life. Just then, a text message popped up on my phone. It was from the detention center. Lu Linchuan has requested to see you, he wants to convey, through his lawyer, the secret beneath the Shen family's land. I turned off my phone. Some secrets no longer matter that night. I returned to the cold-toned mansion where I had lived for 3 years. I turned on all the lights, only to find the place so empty it was nauseating. I took my parents' photos and my professional books. And everything else, the expensive jewelry, the glamorous dresses, and that jewelry box filled with hypocritical warmth, I burned it all to ashes in the shabby, cheap rental apartment. Lu Linchuan, with all his assets frozen, couldn't even afford the best lawyer. He watched me on TV, full of confidence and vigor, as I redefined the city's business landscape under the title of CEO Shen. He once thought he was my savior, he once thought I was a plaything in his hands, and now, he can only listen to the wind outside the iron bars within the confines of his prison cell, spending the rest of his life tormented by the illusion of if only he hadn't betrayed. I stand before the floor-to-ceiling window, gazing at the myriad lights of the city below. Shen Ruining, you finally made it through this hurdle. As dawn broke, the mountaintop cemetery was enveloped in a thin layer of morning mist, appearing exceptionally tranquil. I bent down and gently placed 2 bouquets of pure white calla lilies in front of my parents' graves. On the tombstones, my parents' smiling faces remained as kind as ever, as if they had never left, quietly watching over me on this long journey. Dad, Mom, it's all over now. I reached out and lightly traced my fingers over the cold stone tablet, my voice so soft that only the wind could hear it. I've taken back everything the Lu family owed us. The Shen family's sign will be hanging high on the financial street again tomorrow. I stood here for a long time until the sunlight pierced through the clouds, casting a brilliant golden edge over the entire city. Miss Shen, Lu Linchuan is outside. He insists on seeing you one last time. Zhu Cheng had followed me at some point, holding an umbrella in his hand, his expression complicated. These are the last 2 hours of his medical parole, he said. If you don't go, he won't cooperate with the upcoming treatment. I turned around, looking at the dilapidated ambulance parked by the roadside in the distance, a self-mocking smile curling at the corner of my lips. Let's go, one last meeting. Beside the ambulance, Lu Linchuan wore a loose blue-striped hospital gown, his entire body alarmingly gaunt. The once meticulously styled short hair was now covered in withered, yellowed leaves. He looked at me, his eyes no longer holding that cool detachment or pride, only a stagnant, humble emptiness. Ruo Ning, he began, his voice hoarse as if scraped by sandpaper. I want to ask you one last question. I stopped 3 steps away, my hands tucked into the pockets of my red trench coat, my posture distant. Go on. These 3 years, even for just 1 second, did you ever truly love me, or were you waiting for this day from the very beginning? I looked into his eyes brimming with tears, yet not a single ripple stirred in my heart. Once, I thought I would hate him to the bone, or laugh mockingly at his miserable state, but now, I only feel pity for him. Lu Linchuan, does it even matter? I gazed at him calmly. When you watched Su Man laughing in Bali, when you personally slipped the miscarriage-inducing drug into the bird's nest, where was your love? My love died long ago on that rainy night. 3 years ago when the Shen family went bankrupt, the Shen Ruining who married you later was nothing but an illusion you created with your own hands. Wasn't it that illusion you loved too? Lu Linchuan was as if struck by lightning, He clutched his chest, coughing violently, blood staining his palm. So, this is my retribution, he laughed bitterly, tears streaming down his sunken eye sockets. I killed the only person who truly loved me with my own hands, and was used as a pawn by those closest to me to destroy everything. Shen Ruining, you are truly ruthless. You've made living more painful for me than death. Live on, Lu Linchuan, live to repent, and watch as I lead the Shen family to heights you have never reached. I didn't look back, walking straight toward the black car waiting nearby. 1 month later, New York, International Technology and Finance Awards Gala. The dazzling crystal chandeliers lit up the hall as bright as day. Top business leaders and scientific research experts from around the world had gathered here. I was wearing a custom-made dark blue starry evening gown designed by a top-tier designer, and with every step I took, the hem of the dress seemed to shimmer with countless stars. The winner of this year's Most Influential Woman in the World award is Ms. Shen Ruining, Executive President of the Greater China region of the Tianshu Group and founder of the S Laboratory. Amid thunderous applause, I walked up to the podium that symbolized the pinnacle of the industry. As I looked at the countless admiring eyes in the audience, I remembered myself 3 years ago, quietly brewing coffee in the Lu family mansion, and the version of myself who had wept on the operating table. All those hardships had now become the pearls on my crown. Many people ask me, what is the secret to success? I held the heavy trophy, speaking into the microphone with a confident and bright smile. My answer is just one sentence: never lose yourself trying to please others. When you become your own light, the whole world will make way for you. After the banquet, I stood on the balcony, enjoying the breeze. Jiyu Qingju walked over and handed me a glass of champagne. President Shen, what are your plans next? I heard you intend to demolish and rebuild the old Lu family mansion. No, I won't tear it down. I gazed at the distant, bustling neon lights, my eyes resolute. I'm going to turn it into a museum, to document the truths that were once concealed, and to record the miracle of how a woman rose from the ruins. So, would you be interested in discussing something personal with me? Jiyu Qingju smiled with gentle elegance. I turned my head, raised my glass, and lightly clinked it with his, the sound crisp and clear. Mr. Jiyu, my current price tag is quite high. I tilted my head back and finished the champagne, letting its sharp yet sweet flavor bloom on my tongue. In a sanatorium far away in City A, Lu Linchuan huddled in a dark corner, his mind already somewhat dazed. He kept repeating a sentence into the void. Ruo Ning, the bird's nest soup is ready, drink it while it's hot, and all of this has nothing to do with me anymore. I pushed open the balcony door and walked back into that dazzling crowd. There, I have my career, my ideals, and my infinitely broad, cloudless future. Goodbye, Mrs. Lu. Hello, Miss Shen.